Hey everyone, it's Kelly. I'm back today with a new 12 by 12 scrapbook process video for Pretty Little Studio. And my layout today was inspired by this project life card that is included in the XOXO collection. And when I first saw this project life card, I immediately thought of the little letters cut file from the Cut Shoppe. So I am going to use this cut file on my layout today. So I'm going to start with a Cricut Design Space tutorial just to show you how I modified the cut file to help mimic the look of that project life card. So I'm going to start by inserting a heart. I want to substitute this heart for the letter O, so that way I can mimic that I Heart You title that was included in that project life card. So I'm just going to resize the heart to fit over the letter O, but I want to make sure that I'm not covering up too much of the surrounding letters. So I want to make sure I'm not covering up too much of the J or too much of the N or too much of the P. So it takes me just a little bit to get it resized correctly. I do unlock the dimensions so that way I can shrink it and modify it however I need to fit within that space. I'm going to use the heart to slice out the letter O, but before I do that, I'm going to duplicate the heart, and you'll see why I do that in just a moment. So to slice out that letter O, I'm just going to select the heart that is positioned over the cut file, select the cut file, so both of those images are selected, and then I'm going to go down to the bottom right-hand side and click Slice, and you're going to see that it's going to remove that portion of the O. Now, when I move on to the process portion of the video, you're going to notice that this is kind of where I stop. I just remove the letter O and just kind of clean up the surrounding edges, but I don't do this next step, which I'm going to show you here in just a moment. And looking back at it, I wish that I would have, because I do end up going in and cutting an outline to go over the heart, and all of this will make sense in just a moment. But right now what I'm doing is I'm just cleaning up any remaining pieces that may be left behind. So there was a little bit of the top part of the O still remaining on the cut file that was attached to the letter J. So I just inserted another shape, and I'm just cleaning up that a little bit more using the slice feature. Now this next part is what I was talking about creating the outline for the heart. I'm going to duplicate the heart again, and then I'm going to change one of the hearts to a different color just to make it a little bit easier to see when I position these two hearts on top of each other. I'm going to shrink down this red heart a little bit, and then I'm going to center it inside the dark gray heart. Once I have it lined up how I want it, I'm going to select both of those heart images. I just draw a box around those to select both of them. And then I'm going to go down and hit Slice again. So this is going to create an outlined heart, which will match the cut file a lot better. When I do the process video portion with my layout, you're going to see that I just cut a solid heart and I just glue it right in the center of the letter N and the letter P. But because all of the letters are outlined in this cut file, I felt like I needed an outline around the heart. So I ended up going back in off camera at the very end of the video, and I cut an outline to glue on top of the heart that I cut, just to give the cut file the same look. That way the heart didn't stand out too much and it looked like it was meant to be part of the cut file. So I'm going to take that outline heart and I'm going to position it back with the cut file, and then I'm going to select the heart and the cut file and go down and hit weld, and now it is all one image. So now I need to work on sizing the cut file. So I'm going to go over to the templates, and I'm going to select the photo memories templates and then select the scrapbook layout, and that will just insert a 12 by 12 box on the background. It just gives me a visual representation of what size my layout will be, so it's easier for me to size the cut file for how I'm going to need it. So I'm going to shrink this down to fit on that 12 by 12 square. And then I'm going to also insert another shape and resize it to 2.5 by 3.5 just to give a representation of what my photo will be. So that way I know how large I need the cut file to fit around my photo. I always record my Cricut tutorials after I've actually made my layout, just to help streamline the process of the Cricut tutorial. Sometimes there's a little bit of jumping around as I'm working on it, or I have to modify things to get it to fit the way that I want. So to make it easier, I just streamline the process and get from point A to point B as quickly as I can for you. That's why I'm showing you this outlined heart, even though that's not actually how you're going to see the cut file when I'm making the layout, because this is how I really wish that I would have done it if I were to do it again. But before I bring the cut file onto the screen, I do want to add some mixed media to my white cardstock background. So I'm going to use I think I used 4 different Distress Oxide inks. I'm going to use a couple blues and a couple pinks just to add a little bit of color on the background. I have already added some clear gesso off camera to my white cardstock just to help these colors blend a little bit better. My camera really struggles with the brightness with this layout. It gets really bright and then it darkens up a little bit anytime I move my hands around. So hopefully that won't bother you too much. I tried to catch the areas that were really bright and tried to dim them down a little bit, but you may notice a little bit of color variation as this video goes on. So hopefully that won't be too distracting, but I'm going to go ahead and get these two pink colors mixed up. I wanted to create almost a peachy pink color, and I'm not overly comfortable at using multiple colors on my backgrounds when I do mixed media. I traditionally will just stick with one color, and yellow is usually my color of choice. It is my favorite color, so it's the one that I tend to gravitate towards when I'm creating mixed media backgrounds. So here's the cut file, and you can see that I do not have the outlined heart. I just have the solid heart as I mentioned in the Cricut tutorial. I will go back off camera at the very end and add the outlined heart, which you will see in the still shots at the end of the video. I'm going to go ahead and bring my photo in, and this is a photo that was taken on Valentine's Day at my son's school. I was fortunate enough to be able to go in for his Valentine's party with his classmates, and I went to lunch with him, and then we came back to the classroom and I stayed the remainder of the day with him, and we get out of school right around 3 o'clock. So I was there for a few hours, and he's still at that age where he still enjoys me coming to school. It's still exciting for him, and he's not embarrassed of me yet. So I'm trying to soak all of that in while I can, because I know there will be a time period where it will not be cool to have your mom come to school anymore. So I try to go in as often as I can whenever he asks me to come in to have lunch with him and things like that, because it is something that I enjoy, and I know that he really enjoys it right now, and all of his friends are really excited to see me too. So that's always a lot of fun. So after I positioned all of the die cuts and my photo and everything on the layout, I realized that I did not have enough color coverage on the background. So I'm going to go back in with more of the Distress Oxide inks and just widen the color a little bit on the background, so that way so much of it isn't covered up with the photo and the embellishments and everything that I'm going to put on the layout. So I'm going to bring everything back in and just check to make sure I have enough color coverage. And that photo just cracks me up. He is making a kissy face at the camera because I was actually in the Instagram app and it had one of the face filters on it, and it was Valentine's Day, so they had these little lip prints that would move down the screen. Well, when I took the photo, you couldn't see any of the lip prints. I must have just happened to snap it right at the time where they just weren't generated on the screen yet. And it was just funny to me because he made this kissy face because of the lips that we were seeing on my phone when I was getting ready to take the photo, but then there weren't any there. And I just thought it was hilarious. And I thought it was cute because it was Valentine's Day and he was making that little kissy face. So this is actually one of my favorite photos that I took the whole day. And I did create a Valentine's mini album that I have a flip through of on my channel. I'll try to remember to link to it in the description box below if you want to check it out, but I include this photo in that mini album. So if you watched that flip through, you may have seen this photo before. Okay, so off camera, I added a ton of tiny little strips of the fun foam behind there because I wanted to elevate the cut file a little bit off the background. I did back the I and the U with that same pattern paper that I cut the heart from. So that way the title will stand out a little bit more, and the title will be I Heart You. Now I'm just making sure that I have the cut file straight before that liquid adhesive dries. And I did add some washi tape around the corners of this layout. I taped it to that little mat that I use behind my layout. Because of the water and the Distress Oxides, the paper was wanting to warp a little bit, and I was having a hard time when I was trying to position the cut file on that background. Because the paper was warped, I couldn't get the cut file to lay flat because it was so intricate. So I just taped it down in place while I was adhering down the cut file. Now I'm going to start to work on the layers behind my photo. I am going to add some vellum, and I did fold it in the center just to add a little extra texture. Now I'm going to take one of the 4x6 cards and I'm going to cut it to use, I thought initially as a mat behind the photo, and I wasn't sure if I liked it, but it brought out a little bit more of that teal color that I have going on in the background with the Distress Oxide inks. So I end up leaving it there because I felt like it added another pop of that blue. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere those things together, and then I'm going to start working on getting the embellishments placed around the layout. Speaking of the embellishments, I will have a link to the XOXO Collection and Pretty Little Studio in the description box below. But if you're interested in specific products that I used on this layout today, I will have those specific links on my blog in the blog post that goes with this video. So make sure you head there in case you're curious about a certain product that I use, so that way you can see exactly which one it was. Okay, so I'm working on getting these embellishment clusters arranged. I'm going to have two clusters on the background. I'm going to have one around the photo and then one towards the bottom left. And I'm basically just looking for products that fit the color scheme that I have going on and to fill in those areas. So I'm really happy with how this is looking. I've got a journaling tag, and then I also have another little journaling spot, and I'm going to position the letters XO on top of that circle journaling spot. And once I got that on there, I realized that I had a lot of that deep purple, almost a maroon color on that bottom left cluster, but I didn't really have any going on up by the photo. So I'm going to cut one of these labels in half, and I'm going to position one on the right side of the photo and one on the left side of the photo, just trying to tie in a little bit more of that color just to help balance the design and balance the colors a little bit more. I felt like the top of the photo looked a little bit bare, so I'm going to grab another one of those floral die cuts and just move it around until I get it positioned how I like it. And then I'm actually going to cut off the portion that was going to be tucked underneath the photo, and I'm going to position it on the top left of that die cut just to make that die cut look a little bit larger and just to fill in that area a little bit more. Now I'm going to get that label die cut adhered down on the right and left of the photo just to bring in a little bit more of that deep purple. I'm going to go ahead and adhere down that X and that O just to make sure that it stays right in place, because those little pieces I tend to lose as I'm working on my layouts if they're not adhered down. When I pick my layout up like that, they would fall, and then sometimes I have a hard time finding them. So I'm going to go around and just secure down any of the cut file and the photo and just anything that wasn't fully adhered down that was wanting to lift off the page. I'm going to add a little staple to those two little label die cuts, and I'm going to position that right on top of the photo. Now I wanted to add a couple of the phrase stickers, and I'm going to use these pretty teal color phrase stickers, and I'm going to position them right with that bottom left hand cluster, and I am going to grab two of them. I feel like adding those in 2s or 3s just helps with the design and just helps fill in the area, and then also brings in enough of that color down there. I am going to add just a few lines of journaling, and I am going to add handwritten journaling. I cannot remember the last time that I wrote on one of my layouts. Ever since I've gotten my We Are Memory Keepers typecast typewriter, I use that almost exclusively for my journaling when I actually do journaling, or I will type it out on my computer and print it and cut it into little strips. But it has been a long time. I'm not a huge fan of my handwriting, but I just felt like with this design, it just was going to go better having some handwritten journaling versus having some type journaling. And I was not going to get that to feed through my typewriter since I had everything had already adhered down. So we're just going to go with the handwritten journaling. I'm going to go ahead and add the date. And then this layout is pretty much done. As I mentioned, I will cut that outline for that heart off camera, which you can see it in the still shots here. And I think that's really the only thing that I changed. I did add a little bit of twine through that tag, and that's actually white embroidery floss. It's not twine, but I just did that to finish off the tag. So that is it for this layout. If you have any questions about any of the products or the cut file or anything that I did in the video, please let me know in the comments below. I will be happy to answer any questions. I will be back again with a new layout and process video very soon, and I do want to thank you all so much for watching.